You're listening to Xsgaming Podcast, a podcast for gamers by gamers, with your hosts Xander and James Gruesome, bringing you something old, something new, and a little bit of nostalgia too.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Xsgaming Podcast. We're recording this on the 13th of September, and I'm one of your hosts, Xander Scullion, and joined with me is my wonderful co-host, Mr. James Gruesome. What's up, James?
Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope you are well, as I am 1 year older and a little bit more tired. But I'm not gray-haired yet, so I guess that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was your birthday last week. Did you do anything special? Did you get a cake?
Oh, I bought myself a cake, actually.
Oh, nice.
I usually really don't do much. I use it as an excuse to order a couple things for myself. I ordered a couple of wrestling figures and some shirts and just a whole bunch of Kevin Owens stuff because I love him. He's the best. And I went and I bought myself a Carvel ice cream cake. It was a little smaller one. I pretty much ate the whole thing by myself, not all at once, over a couple days. I did that, and I just hung around the house, and that was about it. Like, it was kind of good, and then the day ended kind of bad. Kind of my fault, kind of my wife's fault. One of those things, you know.
Yeah,
marital issues, nothing real bad, but it kind of ended crappy. But then everything was okay.
Right,
I kind of had a do-over on Sunday, that was one of the things why we didn't record. When I told you, I said, well, I'm just gonna hang out with my wife all day, and Sunday was really cool. So, you know, other than that, but hey, if you end up having a bad birthday, think about it. It's like I've only had 38 birthdays. Like, one ends up kind of bad. It's not really that bad a percentage, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like me. I don't know. I guess for some people, I mean, I know some people would still go all out, but it sounds like you're a lot like me, you know, when it's your birthday. I mean, yeah, you celebrate it, but it's not like, it's just like, oh, it's my birthday. Some people, like, they go all out, like, they're like, you better be nice to me today. It's my birthday.
And some people like that. They do the whole birthday week.
Yeah.
Like my wife,
Oh, yeah.
She always takes off a whole week, but, you know, once you're over, like, 20, it's just kind of like, man, who cares? I enjoy seeing all the Facebook posts, you know. I do like seeing, you know, all the people like, hey, you know, happy birthday, like, it's pretty cool, but it's just another day. I mean, I happen to be off. I always work on my birthday, but I take Thursday off, and it fell on Thursday, so I was like, well,
Nice.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, I do that too. I mostly work on my birthdays. I think my birthday this year actually falls on a Saturday, so that's going to be pretty cool. But speaking of birthdays, our main topic for this episode is going to be talking about the Super Nintendo and the Dreamcast. And something else is really funny. You know how Facebook has that, you know, look back memories thing? It was like, this is what you posted a year ago. Well, it's funny because we actually recorded episode 71 where we talked about the 20th anniversary of the original Sony PlayStation. We talked about it last year on the same exact date that we're recording this podcast. Isn't that wild?
Yeah, man, that's pretty odd. That is pretty cool, though. I've been getting a lot of Facebook memories from back when we started the show. It's
That's crazy.
From 2012 in September. I see a lot of these. Hey, check out this show I'm going to be a guest on, and check out my friend Xander's show. And then it's like,
oh man, time really flies by. But
yeah, it's crazy. 4 years, man. It went by really quick.
Oh yeah. Now, other than our main topic, we do have some gaming news to talk about, and a lot has happened in, you know, the week or so that we have our little break that we record another episode. The main thing I want to talk about, because I really want to hear your thoughts about this, James. Sony finally announced their PS4 Slim and the Ps4 Neo that's now called the Ps4 Pro. They announced these consoles. Now, I have a little chart that because, I mean, there's a lot of features with these new consoles that are quote-unquote better than the original PS4, but I'm just going to talk about the basic bullet points. I'm not going to get into frame rate and all that stuff, but the price for the Slim is going to be $299. The price for the Pro is going to be $399. Now, the release date for the Slim is going to be September 15th. The PS4 Pro is November 10th. Now, here's where they kind of differ a little bit different. PS4 Slim cannot do 4K gaming. PS4 Pro, it can do 4K gaming. The PS4 Slim can't do 4K media streaming like Netflix and Hulu and whatnot. The PS4 Pro can. Both consoles have HDR support. PS4 comes with it, and the PS4 Slim comes out with a firmware update. Same with the original PS4. All three PS4s, that sounds so weird, but all three consoles are going to be HDR support. Both consoles are compatible with the PlayStation VR. And here's the thing that I was the most worried about, that both consoles are compatible with all PlayStation 4 games. Now, this was something I remember we were talking about months ago when we first heard about the PS4 Neo, and we were wondering if, like, Sony was going to release like two different versions of the game. Like, you would get the core game for the original PlayStation 4, and maybe you would get like the Neo version or the Pro version now, I should say, that would have like the 4K capability. Apparently, it's all going to be compatible. You don't have to buy multiple copies of PS4 games to consolidate your console. So, what do you think about this, James? Because you're still in the market for a PS4. You got a lot more options now.
You know, honestly, until you said something, I thought the PS4 Pro was the Slim. I got all confused. That's how much
that could be a bad thing.
Happened.
That could be a bad thing,
dude. You know? I was listening to another podcast earlier today. I think it was like Nintendo voice chat, and I think they'd mentioned, talking about in the names how people talk about the Wii U. It was a little bit confusing from the Wii, but now we're in this era, like you said, there's 3 different PS3s. There's going to be
PS4s, yeah,
PS4s, and like right now, it's in a pretty short span, and we're getting 2 new ones within a month of each other. Same thing with the Xbox. You're going to have 3 of those. So you just got S's, Slims. It's hopefully the day kids they know what they want, and they know what's up. So hopefully they'll let the parents know. But
parents are going to be like so confused.
It's going to be mind-boggling. But it's actually cool when you said the Slim was like $299, because I remember I'd heard the Slim was coming, and then like I said, it got mixed up. And that's how confusing it is. But I'm probably I don't really care about the 4K stuff. I don't, I'm still trying to pay for my TV. So I don't think I'm going to be getting any kind of, I don't even really know what it is. And I really don't care. It's some technology that we might have to do later on down the road. But for right now, not gonna really worry with it. I mean, $100 difference with me. I am going to sit, and it's something I'm going to think about, because, I'm going to have the money for it. But do I want to spend that extra 100 on a couple other games?
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to have that choice, but like I said, it is kind of confusing. I'm just going to sit down and look at all the stats and read up on each of them and make a decision. Depending on when I have all the money by, though, I might go ahead and just snag the Slim, since it's coming out really quick.
Well, also keep in mind, too, now that we had the Slim and the Pro, the original PS4 is probably going to be a lot cheaper as well.
That's another thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, it could drop some, but I like that price range of 3. I'm pretty comfortable with that, and I think it's going to have the terabyte hard drive.
Oh yeah.
That's what I want anyway, and those are a little bit harder to find new from what I've seen around here, and I don't really want to get a used one. So there's like a new one that I think is a really reasonable price for me. And like I said, if I go that way, I got an extra $100 I can spend on whatever.
Exactly. Well, I mean, it is a good and bad thing. I mean, the pros is no pun intended on the PS Pro, but the pros to it is, I mean, you do have more options, and none of it feels like an obligation, which I really like that. I'm glad that early adopters, unless you're crazy about 4K, unless you're crazy about having a bigger hard drive, you don't feel like you have to be like, I need to upgrade now. Now, the thing about this is, a lot of people are talking about, this is totally going to be changing console gaming. Console gaming is going to have to change. And unfortunately, this is what's probably going to happen. The lifespans are probably going to be a lot longer, and we're just going to have upgrades, and it's going to be more of the PC route, in my opinion. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, as long as the upgrades in the future become a lot cheaper. Like, it'd be nice, if, we got a console and, in a couple of years it was an upgrade, like an actual graphics card, or, like how the Saturn had, like, the AR cartridge that you could put in the back, or the TurboGrafx had different hue cards that you could put in to add different features. Do something like that, and it will kind of add a little bit more of a lifespan to a console and maybe make it cheaper. But for now, it's just, I see it changing. Console gaming is changing, and some people are all for it. Some people are like, this is too similar to PC gaming, and I'm just going to buy a PC at this point. So
yeah, you can't blame the people for doing that. I mean, that's a cool route to go. I wouldn't mind, like you said, with the upgrades, whatever's a little bit cheaper. I mean, I don't really think anybody wants to go down and plunk down $5,000 for a new system. I mean, a lot of people do, but I don't know if anybody's really happy about that. You'd be happy you're getting a new system, but not happy minus the $5,000. So, ways we can get easier ways to make the means of playing the new games we want to play cheaper. Hey, I'm all for that. I'm just going to kind of go with the flow because, I can't do anything about it anyway. So
yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, gaming's always changing, technology's always changing, and to me, it all started changing with the last gen when 360 and PS3 overstayed their 5-year lifespan. I mean, normally we were used to having consoles that last 5 years, where the PS3 and Xbox 360 lasted for, over 10 years. I mean, I think Microsoft finally disowned the 360. I think there's finally nothing coming out. And Sony, I think Sony still has, like, certain games are still coming out for the PS3. So these consoles still have a little bit of life, but it's very much dwindling. And, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. Now, of course, going into Nintendo, I don't know if you saw this, but apparently, Apple had their press conference, and they revealed the iPhone 7 and, all that stuff. But something surprising happened. During their press conference, Miyamoto came up, and they announced a brand new game that's coming out for the iPhone. It's going to come out later for the Android as well, and it's called Super Mario Run. And it's a new app game from Nintendo, and it's a Mario game where you're pretty much, Mario's running, and you tap the screen, and he jumps and do certain things. It's very simplistic, but it's very Mario. The one thing that's very different, because this isn't anything different from Nintendo, Nintendo's been making apps for phones with Pokemon Go and Miitomo. The difference is this app you will have to buy. This is going to be a purchased app. So that's going to be a little different. I don't know if they'll have, like, microtransactions. I hope not. But what do you think about that, James? I mean, Nintendo is really diving into the cell phone market. It's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, that shows you a lot of people kind of wondered, with the speculation, what are they going to be? Is it going to be, just like Super Mario Brothers? They're going to put their games out? Or a lot of us thought, hear them, from what they said, is like, no, they want to make it their own thing. I saw, it's a Mario game made to play with one hand. Like I said, maybe it'll be like $5. I don't know what the average. I really don't play like mobile games, so I don't really know what they cost. But if you sell enough of it, even like at that price, maybe it's just a game. No microtransactions, just simple fun. I'm sure it'll be great. I'd be curious to play it. Would I? Yeah, I don't know. I might. That might be my first diving into a mobile game. I think it's kind of cool, the fact that it is something different. It's set up, for that, control. It's pretty much what I take of it. It's like an endless runner kind of, where Mario just keeps going. Similar. Yeah, like I said, you just tap the screen, so it doesn't have to have. And Nintendo likes to have that precise control, especially on like Mario, and it's something we've said before, you can't have that on a cell phone game. So it sounds like it's set up for, what it's going to be played on, and I think it could be really cool. It's cool to see. And just kind of want to see, how good it does, to see if a lot of people like really. I don't think it'll be any kind of like Pokemon Go. That's a completely different experience in general. But I'd like to see it do good, and maybe there'll be more games like that. The end of the day, it's really just about the quality, and is the game fun?
Yeah, that's the important thing. And then they did announce that they're supposed to be making a Fire Emblem and an Animal Crossing game for the cell phones. And I'll be honest, a lot of JRPGs are actually not too bad on cell phones, because there's not a whole lot of movement. You can get a lot of Dragon Quest games, Final Fantasy games are all over mobile market, and it feels natural. And I could see Animal Crossing having that social aspect that it does, so we would probably get like almost like a Miitomo kind of feel with the villagers and stuff like that. I don't necessarily, some people are like, questioning Nintendo, being like, what's this hold for Nintendo? And me personally, I'm just along for the ride. I'm just like, you know what? I think it's kind of cool that they're branching out their brand into other categories. And at the end of the day, it's going to add more wonder about the NX. Like, what's the NX going to be? And, the home consoles, handhelds, but all in all, we're just going to get more games. So it is what it is. That's all I want. It's just more games.
It's just, like I said, it's going to be fun to see at the end of the day, get more games, and are they fun? And that's the best you can hope for, just a good experience from it. And I hope it does well.
Yeah, me too. And for you guys that are wondering when Super Mario Run is going to be coming out, it's going to be coming out first for iPhones in December 2016. So, other than that, that's really just been going, that's what's been going on in the news. Nothing too crazy, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes it's good that...
Yeah, nothing bad. I did see where the Retrobit Generations, multi-game console put out a game list that, from what I understand, it's not even complete. There's more to be added to it. But, man, it's got a lot of stuff, and I'm still not sure. It really, to me, it looks like it could be a mixture of, console games, some arcade, you get some Game Boy. I'm still not sure. It only specifies a couple. It says there's a game called Rodland, and it has in parentheses Game Boy on one, NES on the other. I'm seeing games, Avenging Spirit, and now that one was an arcade game. It also had a Game Boy port. There's all kinds of stuff on here. Kung Fu Master. Kung Fu Master was the arcade version of Kung Fu. They have both of them listed here. So I'm thinking we're just going to get some crazy mix of all kinds of stuff, and I'm all for that.
That console is going to be something special. I really want that console. And of course, speaking of clone consoles, the NES AES by I believe it wasn't Retrobit. I don't think it was Retrobit that made them. I'm trying to look it up right now. But they released their console, and it's been getting good response. I've been watching a lot of reviews, and it seems to be legit. Like, a lot of people are really loving it. So I think that's kind of cool. That's going to
be a way. My brother, I think he said he's planning on getting one. It's that one. If you want like one of the, I think, best means to play, your NES and Famicom games on an actual system with, great picture, and it's still at a price that is going to be, some people aren't going to want to drop the money, but I think if you're, one of those hardcore serious Nintendo collectors, it's something you might want to look into more, with a price that's not, I think it's like $180 or something. It's like under $200. Definitely not anything I would get, but I could see a lot of people going for it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to be celebrating the 25th anniversary of the SNES and the 17th anniversary of the Dreamcast, talk about some of our memories, some of our favorite games, because those are two really fantastic consoles. So sit back, relax, guys, and we'll be right back.
check it out. Now that you're feeling real tipsy, let me take you on a trip and roll with me. With the brothers get their party on every day, because we got to do that anyway. Hey, it's time to get on down to the funky, funky rhythm and the sound. Cause I gotta hit you up, big baby, and stop that woo like gravy. Yeah, put the stuff in your trunk every day and let them big busters know that we don't play. Hey, it's the funk coming through, hitting you every single day of the week. Yo, come on, come on, come on, come on. Check it out. Now that you're feeling real tipsy, let me take you on a trip and roll with me. With the brothers get their party on every day, because we got to do that anyway. Hey, it's time to get on down to the funky, funky rhythm and the sound. Cause I gotta hit you up, big baby, and stop that woo like gravy. Yeah, put the stuff in your trunk every day and let them big busters know that we don't play. Hey, it's the funk coming through, hitting you every single day of the week. Yo, come on, come on, come on, come on.
And we are back, guys, and that was some music from Jet Set Radio, one of my favorite Dreamcast games. And I found out recently it was one of my girlfriend's favorite games, and she went off last weekend, and I made her a CD, a Jet Set Radio CD, and she really enjoyed it. Which I will say, that game does have like just a very unique soundtrack. It's just really, really cool. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the Super Nintendo and the Sega Dreamcast. Now, the Super Nintendo came out in August 91, and of course, the Dreamcast, I cannot forget that release date. Came out on 9/9/99. All those nines. And
so many.
I know, right? And James, I want to ask you, and this is going to be I know this is going to be a long answer, but the best way to summarize it, tell me some of your first experiences with the Super Nintendo and the Dreamcast.
You know, Super Nintendo is one system. Seems like I remember I got it at Christmas. I want to say I got it Christmas of that year in 91, because I remember using my friend down the street. He got stuff before me, like systems. And, you know, his dad was a doctor and his parents were divorced, so, you know, he got good presents. And I had to wait a little bit longer, but it seems like we both got them that year. And it was always great getting a system. I really don't know if I played it at any of the kiosks in stores. I don't remember, you know, any other friends having it before me. So really, the Christmas morning was my, you know, first memory playing it. And of course, back in the day of pack-in games, what an awesome time! And two controllers,
oh yeah,
insane, you know. But I remember opening that up, and it had Mario World, and my dad had bought Pilot Wings a little bit more for himself. He wanted to play that one. He always kind of liked flight, not full-on flight simulators, but games that were, I guess, kind of like that. It's supposed to be a little bit more like a real-life flight. And, we didn't have the hugest launch. Other than that, it was SimCity and Gradius, and I think F-Zero, too. But I had those. I mean, Mario World and Pilot Wings was really all I needed for a while. Very happy with that. Got to rent games a little bit afterwards. I remember Draken, early crappy RPG on the Super NES. I remember that being one of the first games I rented, and just a great system. And the Dreamcast, I think I had a friend that had one a bit longer than me, but I remember I got mine when they were all on discount. I think that was the next year, maybe.
Yeah.
And I think they dropped. What did they drop them to? I don't know if they were 100 or if they were at 200. I don't remember, but I remember getting 3 games. A lot of people had these games because they were $10. Zombie Revenge, which was pretty cool. Soul Fighter, not Soul Edge or Soul Blade. It's a Soul Fighter, kind of a crappy beat 'em up martial arts game, and there was one other one too that was $10. I can't think of the name, but I enjoyed that system too. Just another really fun one. Just remember playing the fighters on there with friends. Good multiplayer system in itself, and just there's just something about it. It's startup, everything. It just kind of had like a happiness to it. It's kind of hard.
It really
to describe.
did. I mean, always. The Sega Dreamcast was the swan song for Sega with consoles. I mean, it really did end in a high note. Some consoles, they don't, when they fizzle out, they don't fizzle out that well, but I think the Dreamcast really did, and that's the reason why it has such a huge following, and so many people, reminisce and dream that one day there'll be like a Dreamcast too, which, I mean, we all know it's not going to happen, but my first experience with the Super Nintendo was in '91. I had gotten my Nintendo a year earlier, and I remember when I got my Nintendo, I fucking loved it, dude. I don't know if I told you this, but I loved my Nintendo so much that I actually had a parent-teacher conference, because anything that we would write about, like, you're a kid and you write about journals and stuff, like, what did you do this weekend? Everything I wrote about had something to do with Nintendo. Like, I would throw Nintendo in things that made no sense. Like, we'd be talking about, like, what's your favorite food? And I'm like, I really like pizza. Pizza's good. I like to eat pizza while I'm playing Nintendo. Stuff like that. So, I was a full-fledged Nintendo fanatic, and I remember my cousin came over with the Super Nintendo, and it blew my mind. It was a mixture of amazement and jealousy, because I was just like, I had Nintendo, I was on top of the world, and here he comes with the Super Nintendo, show me Super Mario World. I felt like he was like one-upping me, but I was so intrigued by it. And the cool thing about the Super Nintendo was, my experience is, we were going to have a sleepover, and he came over, he brought the Super Nintendo. I remember he brought Super Mario World and some football game. I can't remember the football game to save my life, but he ended up getting sick, and he had to get sick. Like, he went back home. He ended up getting sick. But the cool thing about this, and I still mention it to him to this day, my cousin Jame, I tell him, I'm like, dude, you remember when you got sick and you had to go? He's like, yeah. And I was like, and you left the Super Nintendo there for me to play all weekend? That was such a noble move. That was so awesome. He left the Super Nintendo. He was like, because I was crying. I was upset because I liked hanging out with him. He was a little older than me, and I wanted to play Super Nintendo with him. And he was like, oh, I'll just leave the Super Nintendo here and you can play it. So that just automatic cool points, coolest cousin ever. But that was my first experience with the Super Nintendo. My first experience with the Dreamcast was actually at Babbage's. I remember going in magazines and seeing in the very back of, magazines that would show consoles and Japanese imports, and one of the things they showed was the Sega Dreamcast, and I was like, whoa, what is this? And the big deal was it was 128 bits. Because back then, bits was everything. We all talk about, high frame rates and HD graphics. Back then, it was all about bits.
They kept doubling, like every system would just double.
I was like, oh my gosh, this is 128 bits, And I went to Babbage's, and they had a kiosk, and they were playing Ready to Rumble. Such a fantastic game. I loved Ready to Rumble, and I remember playing it and just being such in shock and awe, because it felt like I was playing it felt like I was playing the arcade, and I think that's one of the reasons why I love the Dreamcast so much. It feels like an arcade at your house.
Yeah, and you did have a lot, of those, especially with, Virtua Fighter. That version of Soul Calibur that came on there, still highly regarded, to this day. That was one, that's one of the steps in killing the arcades right there, Dreamcast.
Yeah, because you got to think about it. The biggest comparison when you got a game was how close was it to the arcade counterpart. If you got a game that was based off of arcade, it had to play very close to the arcade counterpart or it was trash. Now, for some exceptions, I think some console versions are better. Like, I really like the NES version of Contra as opposed to the arcade version. And I really like the NES version of Strider. Like, I love the arcade version of Strider, but something about the NES one was...
Oh, yeah, dude.
It was
NES
so much
Strider.
better.
I absolutely love that game. Same with Rygar.
Yeah.
Man, and Rygar and Strider, I think, are two awesome Nintendo games that completely just murder their arcade counterpart, as far as I'm concerned.
But with the Dreamcast, we were getting almost arcade perfect ports because they were using the same hardware in the Dreamcast as they were the arcade. It was like the Naomi something another, all these numbers and shit. They were using the Naomi game board. So a lot of light gun games, fighting games, which is like what the Dreamcast was known for, was all the fighting games. And I will have to say one thing about Dreamcast that I really loved about it was it had such a big relationship with Capcom. If you want to play some good Capcom games, go to the Sega Dreamcast. It was amazing.
They definitely got a couple more of the oddball titles. When you think of your Gunbirds,
oh yeah,
it's a Cannon Spike, Power Stone. A lot of these games that really cool, were only available, on the Dreamcast at that time.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Power Stone, man. Power Stone was just amazing. I love that game so much. It was like the precursor to Smash Brothers, and it's definitely an IP I wish Capcom would bring back. Is Power Stone, and of course, you had games like Shenmue. That was such a groundbreaking game, and there's a reason why it has a huge cult following. And it helped bring one of your favorite games.
Yeah, definitely paved the way for Yakuza. And at the time, I really did enjoy Shenmue. I like that aspect of the recreation of a town. I might think it kind of sucks now compared to Yakuza. I know that's what you wanted to hear. But at the time, I really did like it. The toy capsule machines. One of my favorite parts, just doing dumb things like drinking sodas. It did have a great story. It lacked on the fighting at the time, but at least it was a game that it captured the imagination of a lot of people. A lot of people still love that game to this day, and they still want a part 3. But there wasn't really anything like it, at that time. For us, it had its own world in there. Really cool. You talk about some of the light gun games too. There weren't the most on there. You had like a Virtua Cop on a collection, House of the Dead 2, which was just outstanding, and Confidential Mission, another just really fun, a little bit more interactive. You had a couple extra like a grappling hook or something. It had just a little bit more to it than House of the Dead as far as like the straight shooting. All the fighters, the SNK and Capcoms, Street Fighters, So many, like I said, the Soul Calibur was one of those ones too that really stood out.
Dynamite Cop.
Dynamite Cop is great.
Yes.
It had so many. I can see why it's so fondly remembered. You said the Jet Set Radio, definitely a game that I think benefited from the cell shade. Like I said before, I love cell shaded games still. I still think they look cool. And, it never really got, you had a brief period where you saw a little bit more than normal, but to me, it never really got to be oversaturated with those games to where I still like seeing them today.
Yeah, I mean, cell shading, the one benefit to cell shading games is they age so well. Like, I mean, I can play Jet Set Radio right now on my Dreamcast, and it still looks really, really good. Whereas, opposed if you play like an early PlayStation game or Sega Saturn game, and you look at all those polygons, and you're just like, man, this game has not aged too well. Like, a great example would be I played Spyro the Dragon not too long ago, and the game still looks good, but you could definitely see the age behind it. I mean, that game's only, I want to say like 16 years old. To me, it's not. I mean, that's probably old to some people, but to me, that doesn't feel. It feels like yesterday I played Spyro the Dragon, but for the first time, I should say. But no, I mean that's the thing is, the cell shading's really, really good, and I had to say, James, my first game I bought for the Dreamcast, one of the first games I bought as well was Zombies Revenge, and that's actually a really good game. I have a guilty pleasure for that.
That one is. It's pretty hard too.
Yeah.
It's got some fun co-op. I've heard originally that was going to be a Streets of Rage 4. Not sure how true that is, but it's a pretty good beat 'em up. It was always, like I said, cheap. By the time I got mine, it was one of those $10 games. But I still like popping that one in when I'm playing Dreamcast. I pop it in and get my ass handed to me after a little bit. Just Virtua Fighter 3. I really like that one as far as like the different levels of the ground. How you can be on top of a hill, someone can be down below you, so you use a low kick, and that's the way you hit him in the head. What's his name? The ninja stage. He had I can't remember his name. Kage. Him. He had like a little castle you could fight up on that. Just man, Virtua Fighter 3. I really liked. I mean so many fighters, and going back too a little bit, thinking of fighters with the Super NES, one of the highest selling games on the Super NES, Street Fighter 2.
Oh God! Yes.
Also thinking of arcades. I mean, that was kind of the start. We can say the Dreamcast, which came a bit later, really took the arcade home. Street Fighter 2, that was some of our as youth, our first taste of having something that was a lot like the arcade, like at home. You might have paid
really
$70 for that cart, but you didn't have to go, drop quarters and quarters upon in there just to get beat by some kid that's like 5 years younger than you.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, and that's a good segue because I wanted to talk a little bit about Super Nintendo, and yeah, Street Fighter 2, such a great Super Nintendo game, and it was like the first taste of having that arcade experience at home. And I think one of the things I loved about Super Nintendo was I loved the sound chip. Now, if I had to choose between the Genesis or the Super Nintendo sound chip, I still like the Genesis just because it's so gritty. In my opinion, it's a very rock and roll sound chip because it's like almost unproduced, where the Super Nintendo was very produced. Like, it had so much reverb to it. Sometimes, like especially with some of the F-Zero games, the music had so much reverb that it was like washed out, like 80s music, and that could be kind of cool. And of course, a lot of the RPGs on the Super Nintendo had just like these big symphonic kind of soundtracks that you couldn't believe that was coming out of a 16-bit console, like Chrono Trigger, and of course like Final Fantasy 2 and 3, Secret of Mana, Battle of Illusion.
Those ones, mentioning, those titles there. I mean, another reason Super NES just was so great and still holds up to the test of time is all those RPGs. Those ones you named are on, good majority of people's top list. of RPGs, ones people still love to this day. People can still go back to. You can still play them for the first time, and they're still great. And you didn't, you had your Phantasy Stars on, Genesis, or what's the other one?
Yeah, it was on. Phantasy Star was on Genesis, the Master System, Dreamcast.
You didn't have as big a selection, man. For one thing, they had Square, and they were just killing it. Like, so those games to this day still hold up. I mean, just amazing. There was so many. A lot of people got on those RPG kicks. And it was great because you had, so many choices. I'm pretty sure there was a Dragon Warrior on there. I'm thinking, I never played Dragon Warrior on Super NES. Probably part 5.
Yeah, it was only in Japan, but yeah, there was definitely Dragon Quest games on the Super Famicom.
I mean, those, man, there's just great. You look at your Mario games, Super Mario World, arguably, the best one. A lot of people still love 3, but
yeah, Mario World's my favorite.
You can't argue with somebody over that. If somebody's like, Mario World's my favorite, like, okay, mine's 3. Those Nintendo franchises that we got on there, some of the best in the series, like your Mario World, Super Metroid, the birth of Mario Kart. We had Donkey Kong, Return from the Past.
Donkey Kong Country, man. That game with Rare just pushed the graphics to the limits. I mean, that was a later Super Nintendo title, and you could definitely see it because I remember playing that, and I was almost like, man, this looks like an N64 game, because like back then the N64 was just coming out, and Donkey Kong Country looked amazing. Killer Instinct, I mean, of course Killer Instinct looked better in the arcades, but to take that arcade experience and put it on the Super Nintendo, they did a really good job. They did a really good job of it. And the only thing that was different was the sprites were a lot smaller, in my opinion. Maybe the music was a little different. It wasn't so, stereo CD quality. It was still 16-bit, but man, Killer Instinct was just killer good time, man. That was such a good fighting game. And also on the Super Nintendo, of course, we had like Super Castlevania 4, which is arguably for many their favorite 2D platforming adventure style Castlevania. I mean, a lot of people love Symphony of the Night, but you could ask them like, "What's your favorite Castlevania?" They'll say Symphony of the Night, and their second one will 9 times out of 10 would be Super Castlevania 4. Which I think that was one of the cool things about the Super Nintendo was the Super Nintendo took things that we loved of the original Nintendo and made it super. And I mean, of course they added super to every game, but it really was. I mean, like Super Double Dragon was awesome. Freaking Super Metroid, Super Castlevania.
Super Ghouls and Ghosts.
Yeah, Super Ghouls and Ghosts. All the way fun, man. So much good times.
So many, and for me, being a big wrestling fan, this was the start of wrestling games at home that were actually pretty good. Now, Super WrestleMania, speaking of Super, at least it looked good. It played good at the time. It had its faults. Everybody had the same moves. You had no specials, but at least it looked good. It played good. And then when you got Royal Rumble, that's when they really stepped it up. It's like, okay, you got finishing moves. The wrestlers' music, I still love hearing those. You had chairs, weapons, buckets, and they stepped it up with Raw. So, for me, for loving wrestling, that was the first chance to actually have one at home that you're like, man, I'm not just playing this because, like, it's wrestling. No disrespect to pro wrestling or Tecmo, which are still two of the very best. But as far as WWF, especially themed games, Super Nintendo was like the start of actually ones that were good.
Oh gosh, man, WWF Raw. I remember renting that game and just being blown away that I could do Razor Ramon's Razor's Edge. Like when I pushed the L and R button at the same time and he did the move, I'm like, that was just like so freaking amazing. And I mean, I found myself playing WWF Raw more than I was with my wrestling action figures because I had that simulation,
You could have like 6 people on there for the Rumbles. I mean, that was a lot. So I think it was 6. I think you could fit 6 on there. Which that was just insane. I mean, Raw had the special moves too, which extended from Royal Rumble, where they were a little bit kind of crazy. You could jump up in the air and spin around and fly across the ring and do all kinds of insane moves. But it still had that good wrestling game, at the core. And it's just, WCW kind of had a crappy one on there. But and there was some Fire Pros, of course, in Japan. But WWF finally got it right, and I think Acclaim had something to do with those. Or probably LJN, probably both of them.
Yeah. Well, I would say before we get into games we've been playing recently, I like asking this question to you, James. Like, say hypothetically, you're in some retro store, and someone's like, you know what, I want to buy myself a Dreamcast and a Super Nintendo, but I just don't know what games to buy. Pick 2 games that you would offer that person to get.
Let's see, Super NES, I would say, man, if they could get the Super Mario All-Stars and World Cart,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's cheating. Not really. It's a cartridge,
Yeah, it is, yeah.
I'd say that one's going to cover you on, did all your Marios. They step up the graphics on the old ones. Such a great pack. And man, I mean, Link to the Past, which we didn't even mention earlier, but just because it's so good, man, you don't really need to mention it. Everybody knows about that. Right there, man. I mean, it's Super Mario All-Stars plus World and Link to the Past. You can't go wrong with that. Man, and Dreamcast, wow, I'm just trying, there's a lot. Oh, hell, I'd say another one we didn't mention, another great arcade port, Crazy Taxi.
Oh, yeah.
Always fun. You're going to have a good time with that. And, man, I say if you could get maybe a zapper with it, too, pick up House of the Dead 2.
Nice.
I'll go with those.
I think mine would be for the Super Nintendo. Cause that was really good for the Super Nintendo, man. And the Dreamcast, those were good choices.
It was a little bit more odd on the Dreamcast. I kind of went with like the cheap answers on the Super NES, but I mean, it's hard. It's hard to say and pass those up.
I mean, just look at, you say they're cheap answers, but they're pretty legit answers. I mean, you can't go wrong with that stuff, But with the Super Nintendo, I would probably point them at Super Mario World. I'd be like, yeah, you got to get this. This is like essential for your Super Nintendo. And why not? I would say Super Metroid, because that'd be a game they could play for a long time. Explore all that stuff. Now for the Dreamcast, I would choose Soul Calibur, because that's like one of the best fighters. And I would say Sonic Adventure. Even if Sonic Adventure hasn't aged too well, I think that would still be a really good game to play to get your, feet wet with the Dreamcast.
Those are good ones. Just think of another Dreamcast game real quick. We just didn't mention earlier that everybody loves. How about Sword of Berserk? Huh? Everybody loves that game.
I remember when that game was like so expensive because you had to import it, and like importing was like, in the early 2000s, like importing was so hard to do, and it was before everyone figured out how to burn the games. And I remember people paying hundreds of dollars for
Game Shark too. Good classic way, but still, I mean, getting your games. Me and my friends got a couple of wrestling games, Fire Pro and Giant Grom, All Japan game. It's really cool. It's different than any other wrestling game I've played, but it's got an arcade feel, but it is really awesome. And you'd end up spending, might have been after shipping, like $80 to get the game. But the Game Shark definitely helped out a lot.
I remember I burnt you a wrestling game on the Dreamcast.
That was it. That was Giant Grom. I actually got an original copy. I got used because that was one on the copy. I could play a couple matches and then it would freeze up. But usually a couple matches was all I really needed to play. I just play it for a little bit. But I scored an original copy for like $20 because I was like, this is one I'd like to have the original of anyway. But all the other ones, yeah, we just found out, like you were saying, a couple of years ago about burning Dreamcast games. That just kind of flew over a lot of our heads. Nobody knew that, early. Some of the cool kids knew, but most other people, it's like, you just didn't know.
Oh yeah, it was such a different experience back then, and unfortunately, that was one of the big reasons why the Dreamcast tanked was because of piracy. I mean, I'm not gonna deny it. I have a couple of burnt Dreamcast games just because of the convenience, and
Sega ain't making money on it anymore, so they might as well burn away.
And they don't care. I mean, I don't see a new Power Stone coming out, so I mean, I don't feel like paying the price. I'll burn a copy of Power Stone and play it in the Dreamcast. I don't care. But speaking of games, of course, let's get into games we've been playing recently. I want to start with you, James. What have you been playing?
I've got a few games. I think last time I was talking, I had friend Rob from the Retro Junkies had given me a couple of what are they, Xbox Live cards. So I went on the store there and I got a few games. I haven't played it yet, but I got the DLC for the Alan Wake, the kind of extra, it's supposed to be just kind of like a little side story.
The American Nightmare.
Yes, yeah, that one.
How is that?
I haven't played it yet
because I've heard mixed reviews. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say the people that said they didn't like it was because it's very different from Alan Wake. Like, it didn't feel like Alan Wake to them.
They did say it was a complete kind of like standalone where you didn't need to have played the first one, to know what's going on. I'm gonna check it out probably this weekend. It was like $10, and I got Bastion.
Oh, that's a good game,
dude. It's man, I really like that one. I sat there and I kept wanting to turn it off, but I was like, I'm just gonna do one more level. It got me, I like how you go into the level and it kind of forms as you walk through. You can destroy it. I describe it as kind of like a little, artsy RPG. It's just got something to it. But I'd always heard about it. I read good things, and I was like, man, I've been wanting to play this game for like a long time. Like, I got this card. I was like, screw it. I'm going to get that. I did get the Blood Dragon.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it's called?
The Far Cry Blood Dragon?
Yeah.
That's a good game.
That seemed really cool. To me, it was really hard, and I was getting really killed at the beginning. So I didn't get too far into it, and I ended up, jumping on the Bastion. Picked up a couple other cheap 360 games. I got the old Rumble Roses. Nice little sleazy wrestling game there for you. I got Ashura's Wrath.
Oh yeah, that's a good game.
It seems like one I'd heard a lot of people said it was kind of a long, just a continuous.
Quick time.
Yes, quick time. Thank you. And it does have a lot of that to it. Lots of just moving the controller, tapping buttons. But I don't know, man. I enjoyed it, and I paid like $6, so. I can't complain. I think the final mission is actually DLC.
It is. That was the one thing that everyone got really upset is to get the true ending. You had to buy it. Kind
of got a little bit of controversy with it, but the bit I played, I enjoyed. And the one I played the most of is the game I bought for was it $2, $2 or $3. Didn't even have the cover or anything. It was just the empty case. I took it up, and they actually gave me, a real case and instructions and everything. I was like, wow, way to go, GameStop. So they hooked it up that time. But Rise of the Argonauts. I like Greek mythology, and I've played a lot of God of War, and I like it. But if you want something a little bit slower paced, lots of conversations, and like I said, for $3, it's hard to complain. Some people I could see hating this, but I kind of like it, man. It's kind of easygoing. Lots of dialogue. You can make choices, go on little quests, help people. It's got all the, the mythos there. I love the movie Jason and the Argonauts. You got Hercules running around with you. You get different weapons. You can fight, Medusas and harpies and, all that good stuff. Go get some dude's eyeball. I really liked it, and it kind of just turns into a basic, just kind of hack and slash when you fight. It's nothing special. I don't know if it had come out at new price if I would have been like, oh, this is awesome. But I mean, for $3, and I actually enjoyed it. I played that more than about anything else. I like the story in it, and like I said, it's real laid back. It's not hard, but I could totally see somebody playing that game and hating it too, just because there is so much talking. It's not God of War, like I said. It's far from it. But if you want the Greek thing with like it's a little bit slower pace and stuff, it's definitely not bad, and it's really cheap. And that's about all I played. And I did watch the new Kickboxer movie. It's a remake, Kickboxer Vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
It has Jean-Claude Van Damme in it. He's the teacher this time. And I think it's kind of funny how Van Damme went through a spell where he was kind of like a joke. And I think he's kind of become like pretty cool again. I don't know if maybe he took himself too seriously back in the day. And he did become, a big star kind of quick. But you see him in some of these different roles now, and just, I don't know, it just kind of seems like he's having a good time. I liked it. I love the original Kickboxer. It's hard to touch that one. This definitely smokes any of the sequels with Cody from Step by Step. Tong Po's played by Batista, the wrestler, who was also in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's been a Bond villain. Probably he has the second best movie career next to The Rock. But, it pretty much stuck to the same story. Somebody's brother dies, learn to fight, get revenge. And they threw in a couple of different elements, had some nods to the original, a couple little, inside jokes. I really liked it. It is a remake, so I'm sure some people will hate it just because of that. But if you like the original Kickboxer and, you watch the other sequels, hey man, if you suffered through those, you might as well watch this, and you might find something you like. The main guy, he's a little doofy looking, but Van Damme was a little doofy looking, and so it just works out good, man. I thought it was pretty fun, and I enjoyed it. So that's about it for me.
Nice. Now, I've had a really interesting little catalog of games I've been playing since the last podcast. Last weekend was Overwatch weekend for the PS4. It was free to play. You could download it off the PSN. You could play it online. And, I mean, you had all the features. It was pretty much like a free game that weekend. And I played it. And it was one of those, like, first-person shooters that I had a lot of people talk about. Our friend Gabe, he loves that game. And I was like, all right, I'm going to give it a try. And I was glued to it, man. It was so good, and I'm not a big first-person shooter. I remember my friend Josh and Devin, we were having our game night, and they were in the kitchen playing Magic, and I was in the living room playing Overwatch, and Devin, told Josh, he was like, I've never seen Xander this glued to a first-person shooter. Because, I was just playing match after match, because it kind of made me nostalgic. It made me think of, Time Splitters, or Serious Sam.
Oh, yeah.
In the sense
love
that,
Time Splitters.
Yeah, it was like one of those first-person shooters that didn't take itself seriously. Like, your characters had, every character had, something a little different. And it was very sci-fi-ish, but it wasn't, realistic sci-fi like Halo or, military. It was very different. That's what I really liked about it. So I played a lot of Overwatch. I played some Spyro the Dragon with Jame. And I did play some Jet Set Radio the other day. After I burned her that soundtrack, I was like, all right, I need to play some Jet Set Radio. And plus, it was a Dreamcast anniversary. So I played that. And me and Jamie's starting to play Paper Mario on the N64, which is a game I've actually never played. The first Paper Mario I played was Thousand Year Door on the GameCube. I never played the one on the N64.
I think the 64 one, I've never beaten it, but out of the ones that kind of extended from off of that, I think the 64 one is probably my favorite one still.
Yeah, so we've been playing that, and not a whole lot of gaming because I've just been so freaking busy. I have a huge backlog. I did take the shrink wrap off Shadow Complex, the HD remaster that you and I both got a copy of from Limited Run. But I haven't played it yet. I still need to play it.
That one, yeah, that's I've been thinking about until I get mine. I got a friend of mine with the PS4. I thought about letting him borrow it. giving him the honor of playing it before me till I get mine. Mine's still in the packing thing.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I was just like, I can't play it now. So just add it to the stack. Like I said, I think now I've got about 6 games for the PS4. So
that's awesome.
I'll be set, man.
That's really cool. Well, guys, this concludes another episode of Xsgaming Podcast. And as always, guys, if you are listening to us on Podomatic, be sure to check us out on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/XanderScullion, where I cover all sorts of things from Let's Plays to reviews, discussions, and, of course, backlog episodes of Xsgaming Podcast. And if you are listening to us on Podomatic or YouTube, be sure to check us out as well on iTunes. And make sure you give us a little rating on iTunes, guys, because it does help the show in a way that iTunes users will find us a lot quicker with the more ratings we have and reviews. So make us look like we're legit. It really helps the show out. And of course, you can always join the Xsgaming Podcast Facebook group page on Facebook as well. And if you have a YouTube channel or podcast that you would like to share, or a blog or something, be sure to share on the community page. It's full of discussion and other content creators, and it's really starting to grow. I've been really digging a lot of the discussions that people have been coming up with, and it's been giving me some ideas for like future videos and future podcast ideas and stuff like that. So you guys are helping us out, and hopefully we're helping you guys out, you know, getting known and getting a little bit of an audience. That's what it's all about. But anyway, guys, as always, thanks for listening, and as always, happy gaming.
Have a pleasant evening, everybody.
Can't get enough of Xsgaming Podcast? Be sure to check out our audio podcast on Podomatic.com. You can also subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you have a YouTube channel or podcast you'd like to share, be sure to check us out on Facebook on our group page and join the community. As always, guys, thank you so much for all the support, and happy gaming.